Zay Breezy says trade GP for a first or a second and draft Ibuka. Sign Devontae Adams.
Okay. Well, first off, y'all hit that like button one time for the culture, and don't forget to subscribe. Shout out to the homie Zay Breezy as well. I do like what he's talking about with some of those receivers, man. I've briefly started tapping in on some of those dudes and some of those prospects, man. Yeah, I can see why you a little bit intrigued by Ibuka. I can see some of the appeal of some of these dudes in the first, but I don't necessarily like the appeal of moving on from GP. I don't know if those dudes coming out are giving me GP's production as a whole, but I think if you're pairing it with something, I think those dudes are capable in that capacity in terms of the year one element.
Yeah, I go back and forth on the GP trade. It's just all about how the Steelers feel about his behavior and whether or not they think it's going to improve, whether or not they think he could be a Steeler receiver and do everything and embody what it means to be that, like take on that leadership role.
That is real.
Of being a second contract guy here. I think like that's the type of stuff we're talking about, or I'm thinking about when discussing trading GP. It's not about the play. It's not about who he actually is as a receiver on the field. So that's like the X factor thing in all this. I don't know exactly what's all going on behind the scenes and what the Steelers are saying about that aspect.
That is real, especially when you're talking about just when you fork over money and the money that he would be looking for and that you would be compensating him, and rightfully so too. It is more than just what you do on the field. It is about your leadership. It is about, are you a guy that we can trust that's going to set a certain culture or keep the culture that we currently have set? Are you going to be able to make that a constant and improve it? If not, then we're going to have concerns about you. We're going to have hesitancy, or we're going to be a little bit more hesitant about, investing in you to that extent. Right now, the investment isn't costing them $12 million a year, $20 million a year, or whatever that number might be for him on his second contract. So you put up with a lot more. You are a little bit more lenient also in terms of what you will turn a blind eye to at times. But when you start paying even more money, the impact of that, the impact of what that means to this player and that player culturally, because they're also seeing this now when it's their turn to get paid, they're going to say, well, shoot, this dude got paid. He started saying what he wanted to do and what he wanted to do. Like, why can't I do that? And we kind of already seen how that played out from a negative perspective where we were working from the AB culture, right? And now it's like, all right, we kind of moved on from the TikTok culture. We moved on from DJ and kind of his culture. And now it's GP time. And we're trying to figure out, all right, what's the direction we're about to go in? Now, the positive from my eyes is at least Mr. Rooney still seems like he wants GP here. And he understands that receivers of his caliber, usually they are a little, temperamental at times. And you got to have a little bit more patience with them, a little bit more grace when, handling those dudes. It's kind of how I took him when he was talking about it. But it did seem like, once again, that that's a guy that he wants to still be here versus having GP be shipped off and move some roads. But he didn't say he wanted to necessarily pay him this offseason. But he did say that he wanted to, kind of figure out how to keep him. So I like that idea.
Yeah, I don't think that's the wrong approach either.
Yeah.
Let's not do this contract extension and see how Pickens handles it. If he handles it poorly, then your decision's made way easier.
It was valid, yeah.
You could just trade him then.
Mm-hmm.
Just trade him. Year left on the contract, although you're risking hurting his value depending on how he reacts to not getting the contract, and because teams around the league will see that.
Mm-hmm.
And Pickens, the asking price for Pickens will probably go down because they'll see that and be like, you know what, we don't gotta trade for Pickens that bad. Like, look how he's acting over with the Steelers. Like, we're not necessarily signing up for that and being real happy of potentially bringing something like that in. So we'll see. See what happens with Pickens, man. It seems like he wants to be here too, going back to him responding to that Instagram post from last week.
Mm-hmm.
But the actions got to speak louder at this point.
Yeah, that's real. But I'm just like, man, of all the things, of all the people that were talked about, I'm like, man, if you are GP, you feel really good about what Mr. Rooney said. You feel optimistic. If you're on the D line, you're feeling very concerned, and you should feel like your job could be in danger because he said he wasn't all the way satisfied with that, and that needs to be better. And, when you think about when he's talked about the quarterback room like that before, we had 3 new quarterbacks. He's talked about linebackers before. We had all new linebackers. It's like every time he talks about certain position groups, we've seen the O-line, how many times we done went to that well as well. It's like, man, all right, said D-line. Seemed like we be targeting that, or whether it's in free agency or in the draft early. Just like, yeah, when the boss man is saying that, yeah. So that's why I'm like, if you GP and the boss man spoke on you in a positive light, man, don't blow this opportunity, man.
Sure.
Because clearly he still wants you here. It's not like
we're trying to trade you.
Right.
Whether or not we give you this contract extension, different story.
That's different. Yeah.
But we're not trying to trade you. You still got an opportunity here.
Yeah. So please don't mess it up, man.
Right, because reputation's big. You start getting traded around.
You see, Deontay is a prime example.
Deontay and Claypool.
It's a prime example.
Exactly.
Man.
I mean, even Juju to an extent. I know he played good with Kansas City, but it's just like your value ain't the same as what it was when you were just here with the Steelers and getting 800-900 yards a year.
Now
you're viewed much highlier across the league.
Yeah. Now Juju is almost viewed as exclusively you're just a Chiefs receiver. Like that's where we see you work the best, but we also see you with Mahomes. So that's where he's pretty much going to be right now. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that for him, I'm supposing, but I'm with you. It's very different than how he was perceived or viewed just league-wide leaving here versus where he's at right now, man. But shout out to the homie, though.